All right. So Hitchhiker's Guide to Cancer. Today's topic is going to be personality changes and really as it pertains to relationships. So I'm excited about this episode because this is the first one where I'll actually have my girlfriend joining me. And we want to give both perspectives, as I talked about, from my dealing with the cancer, but also from the loved one's perspectives, which is also equally, if not more challenging. I found an article through the Brain Tumour Center, the Brain Tumour Charity in England, and it sort of actually presented a framework for personality changes and a few key takeaways to keep in mind, because this has been a struggle for my relationships and particularly for my girlfriend because she's around me the most. But what it did was it provided some insight. Mainly, this is normal, this is common. So now we can set that aside and be like, okay, we're not different. This is a part of the process. That makes us feel, it gives you a little bit more comfort, I think. But here's some standout things that go on. The first thing they mentioned were these factors, and 3 factors I wanted to pull out of the process was the tumor growing is a huge factor in my personality and what happens to my personality and how it impacts sort of the interpersonal dialogue with those people around me. And it does that because as it grows, the tumor grows, and I have a 3 or a 4. So that means it grows quicker, more severely. The brain can't accommodate or adjust. So the impact on the healthy cells is going to be far greater than if it was a smaller one. So if it was a smaller tumor, it would grow slower and the brain would adjust. And so you wouldn't see drastic personality changes as much so as a 3 or a 4, which I am, a 4 glioblastoma. That's one interesting thing that I took away from it. Edema, which is a new word I learned, it's just brain swelling. That certainly, again, that inflammation, that swelling impacts the receptors in your brain. So that also impacts your personality as well. Irritability, stuff like that. Now, you're then taking medications, which my primary are seizure medications and steroids, and that's to reduce the swelling. But then what medications also impact your personality. So those 3 main things, and there's a bunch of other ones, but those 3 main things are all at play with your personality, not to mention some other things that I brought up that weren't in the article that were for me pertinent. So one is just the general frustration of the day-to-day, knowing your brain isn't working like it normally is. It's not optimized. A task, and this is true, a task that took me 2 minutes to do for work, the first time I did it when I got back to work, took me 15 minutes. Those things over and over, simple things, playing basketball, swinging a golf club, those things just tick away at you, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. So if that's happening throughout the day, by the time you get home at night to your loved one, you're in a situation where you're just done. And so we always take it out on people we love. So then that's kind of how it manifests itself. So I wanted to bring that up. The other thing I wanted to bring up from my perspective that has been a little bit more challenging is when I'm having conversations, obviously I'm having multiple conversations. My loved one is having a one-to-one conversation with me. That's it. I'm having that same conversation 20, 30, 40, legitimately times a day. And so again, you're now falling into the definition of insanity without even realizing it. So I think that's also a perspective that sometimes people forget. It may be the first time you're having this conversation with me, but I've been having this conversation a lot. So that also plays into it as sort of like an overarching topic. And then remembering like just the general intensity you have during the day and trying to do things, and everyone coming at you and telling, doctors telling you have to fill out this, whatever, it just ends up compounding. And who takes the brunt of it? The person who's with you at the end of the night. So it's great to know. What's most important in the topic of the conversation is like, how do we mitigate that? How do we deal with that? What do we put into place? And that's really what the topic is going to be around. Simply, how can a loved one help? And not only how can they help me, but like, what can I do to make it easier? Because I want that to be a part of the discussion as well. So I'm excited for this, and we're going to kick it right over and bring the Chief Alignment Officer in the house, my ride or die, Lindsey, and our boy Brad Smith. All right, it's time to bring some new people in, some fresh blood. I have been waiting to bring my girlfriend on. And here's the thing. So I want to get right into it because part of this was about two perspectives. It was about my perspective, but I think the loved one's perspective is really important. So we're going to jump right in, Lindsey. And you watched the video I put on earlier, you read the article, and we've had conversations around this specific topic. So I really wanted to get your perspective on it because we haven't had the opportunity. So what really stood out to you, if anything, regarding the article?
Yeah, no, the article was really helpful. I felt like it validated a lot of the feelings I was feeling and communicated it in a way that I probably couldn't to you. It made it feel more like a safe space and kind of get it all out in the open and trying to understand your perspective as someone who's going through it, and then my perspective as someone who's by your side and observing it. Do you want me to like go into maybe some of the
I think specifics would be helpful.
A lot of the article was around like mood changes and some of the kind of side effects from not only the tumor itself, but also from the medications you're taking. So it kind of walked into what those potential side effects are. A lot of it, with regard to like coping mechanisms and the effects on loved ones, and then kind of how to handle it going forward, and having those hard conversations.
Well, is there anything that you took away from it that you either would have done differently or that you will do differently when you're saying how to handle it? What would those things be?
I think for me, I've been scared to bring up a lot of these, especially with regard to the mood changes and a lot of the irritability and like the aggression and not really knowing how to bring things up without escalating it further. So I think maybe just being more honest with you and trying to convey it in a way that you're not feeling like attacked by it.
Yeah.
I think even just some of the coping mechanisms in terms of one of the big ones I took away was self-care for myself.
Yeah, I know. I was wondering if you were going to get that one.
Yeah, something I didn't really have an issue with prior to this happening, but something that I really struggled with once it did. I naturally go into caregiver mode and kind of threw myself into it.
Yeah, I want to talk about caregiver mode because we've had these conversations about prioritization, and early on it has very much been concern about your work, and we've talked about prioritization, and it's ironic because we had recently a conversation about how I think your perception of my priorities are different than what my priorities actually are, because we all have different priorities. But I had this sense that you thought, like you're saying, you went into caregiver mode. My number one priority is not this tumor in my health. My number one priority is harmony, what I talked about. So when you were going into like, I'm trying to help you with this, that, and I'm trying to be by your side. Well, that's number 3. Like scheduling, all that stuff's number 3. It's my harmony, my health, my alignment. Then it's my harmony, I already forgot. Jeez.
Alignment.
No. So it's my alignment, and then it's our relationship. Yeah. And then the third thing is then the health, because we talked about, like, I draw a lot of my energy from you. And if we're around each other all the time and we're not aligned and we're not worrying about our relationship and we're putting that on the back burner, now you're putting yourself on the side, you're putting our relationship on the side, and then you're putting me first. And how can you not build resentment? Right. Yeah. So I had a different priority, but then you were like trying to prioritize myself. And I think there will be a time where I will need to be number one to you. Like I'll need that help, but we're far down the road, or we're not even close to that. And that's, those are the things I get scared about. Like I get scared that one day, like I won't be able to speak, right? Like a tumor comes back and I won't be able to speak, and that freaks me out. And so timing of things are really important, but it is interesting because the patterns were very similar of what they talked about. And what I don't think people realize is, like, you and I can have one conversation and you can be, why is Christian so irritable? But I've had that conversation 100 times, and my day feels like it's like death by 1,000 cuts of people like trying to tell me what I need or tell me what to do. And like I mentioned earlier, it was like, you get the brunt of it at the end of the day, which is where we usually have a lot of our problems.
Yeah. I I guess I would say to that, I think with the whole self-care thing, I think me wanting to take care of your doctor's appointments or drive you places or do things or take care of laundry or cleaning, like that's something I can control.
Yeah.
And this situation is very much out of my control. And I think I went into this mode of like, what are all the things that I can do, that I can control, that I can kind of be a taskmaster without throwing even more emotion into the game, which is something that's been very heightened through all of this. You touched on kind of the conversations you have throughout the day, and I get the brunt of it at the end of the day. I mean, we kind of set that 9 to 5 rule so you can focus on your things. I can focus on my work. But 5 to 9 is our time. And that's usually the time I get to talk to you about your day and talk to you about things. And that's when you're kind of either the most burnt out or like tired of answering the questions. So it's kind of, how do we mitigate that so that your day doesn't now overflow into our time because we haven't, been able to.
And that's the one thing, is like carving out the time, because we then only do 5 to 9. And I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm even talking to you. So recently we're like, 5-minute check in the morning, 5-minute check in at lunch, and just figuring it out, and even communicating, like moving away from text to email as well. So like making text more like personal relationship. Those are all the scaffolding we talk about we're building. I wanted to ask this question to you and get your perspective on it, because I don't know what it's like, but I get this sense that people look at me and I look normal, right? Like the doctors can tell you that the steroids are impacting my irritability. You can read about it. I can tell you I'm frustrated, but I wonder if I was like bandaged up and laying on a couch and like frail and sickly and not running around moving, how it would impact you. Because not just you, but even my friends, I feel like they're treating me like normal Christian, but don't realize internally there's this whole other struggle and whole other thing going on. Do you think that plays? Because I feel like I look normal on the outside, but I do not feel normal on the inside.
I mean, I can speak for myself. I don't see completely normal. I think it's easy to sit in front of the camera and like see one side of this, but I've obviously seen all the sides out, in front of the camera or in the back of the camera. And so maybe some of the things that your friends see like are very different than what I see. And I don't think it's that you don't look like, you look normal, right? And you carry on about your day. But I think there have been like behavioral differences, like, and just personality differences that I have noticed.
So then why, if that's the case, if that's the case, wouldn't it be like, we talked about how I felt like nobody was really listening to me or hearing that what I was saying, that something was wrong. That's where I'm like a little bit confused, is because if I'm saying something's wrong, but then people are talking to me like I need to, like our relationship, I need to come to the relationship in the same way. Well, if I'm dealing with brain swelling and steroids, where's the rub? That, like, to me, I'm like, what's missing? Because I feel like I'm getting treated like I'm an equal partner, like I'm healthy, but I don't feel healthy. Right.
I think the challenge, at least for me, has been trying to separate out, like, what is the tumor? What is the radiation and surgery that you just got? So any inflammation or swelling, what is the medication, and what is just the fact that you're dealing with this diagnosis and you're going into survival mode. And so for me, watching you operate, I'm trying to dissect your moods or changes and like, well, is there really something wrong, or is this have to do with like him being in survival mode or whatnot? And quite frankly, like one of my things that like I kind of had gotten from the article is like, I struggled with bringing up, could it be the medication? Like if I bring up, you're acting a certain way or you're being aggressive or irritable, would that like escalate you even more? Like, oh, I'm not crazy, or what are you talking about? I feel totally normal. How do I address that in a safe space where you don't feel like I'm kind of pointing a finger or making assumptions? So that was something I know that I've struggled with, of how to approach it.
That was the one thing I really enjoyed the article, and I loved we'll put the link in the description. But the one thing it kind of made me, or this person experiencing it, kind of like the victim a little bit, where like you got to coddle them. Maybe that was a misperception on my part, but like I can be an equal participant, but I think there's just all these other factors that you got to figure out like together, people have to figure out, like we talked about timing. Like we've learned at the end of the day is just not the place, but it's the only time we have. So what can we do? But just figuring that out. And we've made some breakthroughs that we'll talk about in the future. The last question I'll have, and then I'll kick it over to Brad, is there anything, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, that like you would have probably done differently if you had like, if you could go back, what would there been anything differently you would have done or handled?
I think I would have been more honest with you, and not been scared of the reaction, of just kind of put it out there. I think I've tiptoed a lot and have been afraid to rattle the cage. But I think there have been a lot of conversations that I wish I would have addressed sooner. I wish I would have started taking care of myself sooner. I feel a huge difference in just getting back in the gym and eating healthy, and like just space. Like space is necessary. Space is necessary in any relationship. And as much as I like feel like I want to be around you, and
who wouldn't want to be around me?
I wanna, God, still got that. So it's healthy to take a step back, and especially during something like this. And I mean, you've said a lot of things that you need in this, and I think I could have done a better job at maybe recognizing the patterns of like your triggers. I think I'm used to the Christian of being a little bit more playful and lighthearted, and like maybe taking something I say a little bit lighter, whereas now it feels a little heavier, and I need to kind of recalibrate like how I speak to you or jokes I make or whatnot. And so I think I just need to be like lock in more of like those triggers that I feel like I've kind of heard and seen, but my emotions take over and I'm not reacting from a level place.
And I think at the end of the day, and this is probably all relationships, is like it's not one person, like you kind of moving towards the middle and doing that, and then me recognizing what my triggers are and trying to be a little bit more patient. Hopefully we can come closer in the middle, and it's like any relationship. It's going to be both ends coming together. Did you, Brad? I mean, you're the loved one, and like you know our relationship. Did you have anything?
I just want to start off with a comment. First of all, as somebody who's been here since minute one, that the three of us, and especially Lindsey, has like come a long way, because like we've had private conversations, and there was definitely that rift of just be like, we just got to say it, we just got to talk to him about it or whatever. And so like the realization of that has been awesome to see. I just want to say that like I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of all of us of just like working through this, and it's been actually, as you would say, a positive experience, and I actually really appreciate that.
And honestly, that's been really frustrating as well. And it's kind of been an underlying thing for me, because I've known these conversations are happening. And I'm like, will somebody talk to me? And it ends up getting very frustrating when you're like, well, everybody else is having conversations behind my back. And I'm like, just say something, you know? So that,
I think for me, just, I'm not defending myself necessarily, but I think from where I was coming from, I almost kind of felt like to a certain extent that it wasn't my place to say it yet. Like I didn't want to like upset you by going, ahead of you, almost like being and just saying it, you know what I mean? So I think for me, I just didn't want to like overstep. And so that's why,
well, and it's not, and I get that. And it's just, and I understand naturally, like that's like a personal thing where you're like, is everybody else having conversations, but not me? And I don't know. I feel like I'm acutely aware of those things. And so I'm like, something's up and nobody's saying anything, but it's a lot of conversations, right? And not just you guys, like my other family members. And I'm like, somebody just speak up, because I naturally want to work. So like, if there's something I can work on, maybe it's not received initially that way, but I tend to lean into working. So it is tough, but we talked about it. Like growth comes through the tough times. It's easy to have a great relationship when you're, flying cross country and doing all these other things. But when you get in it, like, it doesn't matter how long you've been together. It matters about those tough moments, and you get through. I believe that. So I think we're kicking ass.
One other question that I did have.
You were only allowed one. So that
was a comment.
Okay.
Not a question.
Right. Yeah.
But one question I did have, you guys have talked a lot during this conversation about structure and like, knowing appropriate times to talk about certain things. And you had made mention of like, you're really worried about just not being able to talk and things maybe progressing. Have you like talked about potential plans that you may have to put in place in that event? Or is it just, let's just see how this goes and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it?
probably a middle ground. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, we've talked about treatments and like what that does with children. We've talked about, you know, even like marriage and like all these things and housing. She probably doesn't know that I've thought about like the point. A lot of this has to do with the fact some people that have cancer, you can have cancer and you could still say your final words. I'm not going to be able to say my final words.
Yeah.
Like it just won't be possible.
Right.
And so my thought process is very different. And I think that also provides perspective from people about why I'm so adamant about all the documentation is because I'm not in a fortunate place that like, if I take my final breath, well, I'll take it one day, but like, if it's because of this tumor, I won't be able to say what I want to say.
Yeah.
So it's different than a different type of cancer that I may have. But no, that's something where we're trying to work out. And I think one of the bigger things, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but like we're trying to find space where she can be looped into what I'm thinking about. And we haven't really figured out what that looks like, but I want her to be aligned and at least in the know about what is going on in my mind. And so we just haven't got there, but I think that's one of the biggest things. Would you think that would be helpful for you is if you understand like what I'm thinking about, what I'm moving towards?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on behind the scenes over here. I mean, he's making magic happen. I mean, I've seen him working and things coming together and I'm like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's just incredible. Like all the things that you're doing and I think we go on and it's the end of the day and we don't really get a chance to like lock into everything you have going on because we're focused on like the next task at hand or maybe some logistical things that we need to sort out or just being like with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is still something that we're kind of sorting through. So
yeah. So I mean, there's a ton more topics that we can talk about, and I love this conversation. I think this is going to provide more value than anything else, especially for those people in relationships. And bear in mind, like this is challenging for somebody that has 20 years in a relationship. We're coming on our year 1. So I think the biggest takeaway that we've talked about is like kind of giving ourselves a bit of grace in this situation because this is hella hard in general. A year relationship is hard in general. And then you have all these things coming too. So, I mean, I've been really like grateful to have her by my side. I don't know what I would have done without her. I mean, it would have been you by my side. No, I'm just kidding.
That would not work out.
But there's a lot more conversations that we'll have, guys. Every Monday, we'll be posting the Hitchhiker's Guide to Cancer. We'll be talking about the journey. I'll try to have Lindsey on as much as possible. Thank you for being on. Love you.
This was great.
And so we'll see you guys now and then. Friday videos at noon, they come out. So make sure you guys subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
These fires, they burn